Welcome back, guys. If you missed the last part of this video, check in the description just to get yourself caught back up. And if you are already caught back up, then let's keep her going. Alright, so now let's get started with our actual post handler. The post handler would be the one that's actually in charge of finding the posts that we need to post and managing them after they actually are posted. So we could create a new file and we'll call it post handler. And let's set up the basics of this file. Alright, so we created our class, and our class is going to be taking in the post folder, so in this case posts, the posted folder, so posted, and also the receipt file name. So the name of this file we're just going to create, which is going to be the date of the actual, the date that the post was posted, once it actually gets posted. And we also know that the post folder and posted folder are going to be part of this object, which is going to be a path, which is imported from pathlib, so we're going to also want to include that in here. So the first thing that our class is going to want to do is actually pull out all of the posts from the posts folder. So let's create that function right now. Alright, so what this function is doing is, if you're not familiar with Python generator or list generating syntax, this is pretty much creating a list or just a one-dimensional array where it pretty much is getting every file in the post folder. So we're iterating through that directory, the post directory, and we're getting all of the subdirectories in it, or in other words, all of the posts. So if we have multiple posts, like say we have post 2, post 3, etc., etc., each of them as a folder, it will pull all of those and create a list of object paths to each one of those folders. So if we were to run that in here, let's create a new instance of, we'll call it self.postHandler, and we're going to want to import this class. So we could go up here and say, so now we imported this class from this file. And then we could just say it down here. So now we have included the 3 attributes into that class, and now from here we could call on the getPosts function. And then if we print out our posts, then we should just get post 1. I'll actually create another post as well. So we should get the 2 paths from post 1 and post 2. And sure enough, we do. We get Windows paths, posts, post 1, post 2. Alright, so let's take a deeper look into what our tweet.json, or whatever we want to call it, .json file for each post is going to look like. So we know it's going to be in a JSON format, and it could have, we'll just say for now, 3 different attributes. So we could have a status, which could be whatever we want. And then we can include a media, which will be either an image or a video. So in this case, we could say, I don't know. And then we're also going to want a date for when it actually gets posted. So we could say, we'll just say date. And then for our sake, we're going to use this format, which I find really simple to actually manage. So with this syntax, it's going to say post on the year 2020 of month 6 of day 12 at 9 o'clock a.m. We're also going to be using military time, so let's say we wanted to post at 1 p.m. We could use 13 o'clock, and it will post at 1 o'clock p.m. So this is the layout of what we're going to use for our tweets. So if we hop back over to our post handler, we're going to want to create a function that could pull out this information when given the path to a certain post. So if we're given post 1, we should be able to pull out the data, status, media, and date from within that JSON file. So I'm going to start building that function, and I'm going to call it getPostData. Alright, so to explain what this function does is it's going to pull out all of the files within a post that are JSON files. So it's going to look for all the files within post.iter directory, which in post it's going to iterate down that directory to find all the files. And as long as each file within it is not a directory, which checks it here, and also if it is a JSON file, so if .json is within the file name, then it will add it to this files list. Another thing we're going to want to ensure is that there's also only one JSON file within each post. If there are multiple JSON files, we won't have really any idea what the two JSON files or multiple JSON files mean. We want to only ensure that we are pulling posts that have one JSON file. So that's what this block of code does. If it finds that there's more JSON files than just one, or if there's not a one JSON file at all, then it will print out an error that says there's an incorrect amount of JSON files, which I should probably change this to. Alright, so now that error message makes a little more sense. And then, so now that we know, after this block of code runs, I should also return it here. So once this block of code runs, if it does, as long as it like passes this test, then we will know that there's only one JSON file within a post directory. So we could open up the first folder, which will be, or first file, which will be the only file within files, because we know that there's only one JSON file. And then we could just return the contents of that JSON file. So to demonstrate this, I changed up the data in post 2 a little bit. I just wanted to demonstrate that the actual data file for each post, the JSON file, doesn't need to be named tweet.json. It could be named anything.json. So for instance, this one could be data.json. Just makes it a little more lenient if you're manually putting in, that you don't have to remember too much of the actual format, like such as the file names, just the actual file structure. So within our main function, just to make sure that everything is working correctly, we could come in here and we could say for post in posts. We could print out the self.posthandler .get post data and post. So now this will go through all of the posts that it finds within our posts main folder, so post 1 and post 2, and then it should print out all of the contents within the JSON file. Name JSON is not defined. Alright, probably a good thing to include in here. You want to make sure that you import JSON. And looks like it went well. We're getting hello from Python, which is our first tweet.json, which is hello from Python, and then the second one is hello from post 2. We are also getting video.mp4 and pic.jpg. Alright, so it seems to be working well. Alright, so the next step in this is to try to figure out whether or not a post should be put on the queue to be posted, or whether or not the post should just wait for a while until it's ready to be posted. So let's create a new function called isReady. And what this function is going to do is pretty much just compare the post date to the current date. And if the current date is greater than or equal to post date, then come back true. If the current date is less than post date, then we want to return false. Alright, so to break this down a little bit, we are going to be using the datetime library, and we're going to be importing datetime from datetime. So what datetime does is it's a library, just exactly what it describes, which is it's really good at calculating dates and times. So we're going to read in our post date as a string, because remember it's a path object, so we just want to ensure that it turns into a string. And then we are going to format that as this format, which is going to be year, month, and day, and then also hours and minutes. And then that's going to create a datetime object. And then we're also going to want to compare it to the current time as a datetime object. So it's going to do exactly what we wanted, which is going to be if the current datetime is greater than or equal to, that should be. If it's greater than or equal to the post date, then it's going to turn, that's going to return true. If it's less than, then it's going to return false. So we could also test that with our two posts. So the current date is 6/14/2020. So this one, which is post 2, should return false because the current date is less than this date. And the first tweet, if we look at it, it's 6/12, which is less than 6/14. So this should return true. So let's test that out in our main function. Alright, so let's test this out. And sure enough, for the first one we get true, and for the second one we get false, which is just as we wanted. Alright, so putting these three functions all together, we're going to want to create a queue. And on that queue we're going to get all of the posts within our main posts folder, plus the data for each one of those posts, only for the posts that deserve to be on the queue, or the posts that the post date is less than the current date, which is where we're going to be using our isReady function. So I'm going to code that and then we'll talk about it. Alright, so we have our getQueue function, and it's going to pull all of the posts using our getPost function. And then from there, it's going to iterate through all of the posts. It's going to gather all of the data, and then this is just a checker to see if we are going to be posting a video or a picture alongside with that. And if we are, then we're going to want to append the previous path, or the path to the actual post. So we have the path of the post here, and then pathlib's concatenation is just using a // So we have our post / and then the path to the media. Alright, so then we also have to test whether or not the post is actually valid to be posted or not, which is where our isReady function comes in. If it is ready, then we want to add it to our dictionary, which is going to be the queue. And for the queue, our keys are going to be the post itself, and then the value is just going to be the post data. And then when we're done, we're just going to return the queue. So if we go to try to test this out in our code, we should only get back in our queue the first post, just because the date is before or less than the current date. So let's add that into here. Alright, so if we run this, alright, and we get the first post back, and that is our key, and then our value is just going to be the contents of the JSON file. Also, if we check the post that just moved, so post 1, and we go to receipt.txt, you will see the current date time at which it was posted. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and you learned something. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut this part short, so stay tuned for the next part of this tutorial.